All right, peace, Sandra. I hope that you are doing wonderful. And yeah, welcome. This is going to be our first session, right? And so within this session, we are going to be discussing your first through your sixth house. All of these houses are considered to be below the horizon, and as a result, they are private houses. They deal more so with your private life. So we will begin with the first, second, and third house. And the first, second, and third house plus the 12th house, these are all personal houses. And then we'll move on to the fourth, fifth, and sixth house. And the fourth, fifth, and sixth house are considered companion houses. Now, all six of these houses are, of course, private. They more deal with things that are hidden and unseen and unknown. Now, the first house, right, because it's on the left side of the horoscope, it's a ever expanding area of life, right? The first house is continuously waxing and growing greater and greater in its influence and in its energy. Now, the first house belongs to the Trinity of life. The first, fifth, and ninth house, these are all houses that deal with like endeavors that deal with life in general. Now, the first, fifth, and ninth house, these are also houses that deal with the fire signs, the fire element. First house naturally belongs to the sign Aries. And so the energy of the first house is the house of like personality. It deals with the I am. It's very much Aries energy, and Aries is all about the ego, right? It's the first sign. It's all about the me, the self. And so the first house very much is a very personal house. It deals with personal life, right? In the sense that within life we have different departments and different experiences according to the department which we are experiencing within. Like for example, there is the first house, but then there is the seventh house, which is in a sense completely opposite to the first house. And the first house deals with you. It deals with you as an individual. Meanwhile, the seventh house deals with your partners and how you relate with your personal, intimate connections. But anyways, to dive deeper into the first house, you have your first house within the sign Cancer. And ultimately, what this energy would indicate and dictate is that when it comes to your personality, it's very, and like your personal life in general, and the personal affairs that you deal with, it's very much encapsulated or surrounding the energy of Cancer, which is very nurturing, very caring, very feminine and motherly, right? Which can be an indication that you and of yourself are a rather motherly type of energy. You may have this nurturing energy about you that people enjoy. And also, when the first house goes into Cancer, it's an indication that familial energies are of great influence upon one's personal affairs and personality in general. So Cancer is the sign that deals with like the mother, for example, and it just deals with family, right? Those types of energy. So that may be one of the indications here that you may be greatly influenced at a personal level by your family, but simultaneously this energy right here can also be translated as you being very your personality being very encapsulated and surrounded around the energy of emotions and sensations, and in a sense operating your personality from a place that's more like based on your emotions and feelings. So the sign Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? And when we are thinking of the moon is like the subconscious mind, right? It is those habits that are innate within us, that are already built within, and they're not per se things that we have to try to act upon, but there are things that are somewhat automatic. And it's kind of like the polarity between the sun and the moon. Like the sun more so deals with our willpower and how we channel our will. And, it's like more of an active masculine energy. While the moon is more receptive, more feminine, and it's more like our emotional comforts and certain things that were instilled within us via our family, via like, the culture that we were raised in, and things like that, that are more ingrained within us subconsciously. Now, Cancer is the first water sign, and being the first water sign, this indicates that the energy of Cancer is very much inwardly focused, meaning that it very much follows and listens to its own emotions and its own feelings, and it kind of acts upon its emotions and feelings, right? Rather than, in a sense, registering and taking from what other people have to say. I mean, like, because you have your moon in Libra, like, you are rather a type of individual who does not only follow your own emotions, but also listen to the advice and take into consideration what other people have to think before you truly react to a circumstance and situation. But, like, that's the moon in Libra, and the moon in Libra is influencing, your first house and Cancer to be more inclusive in regards to taking consideration of another's ideas, another's thoughts, and another's advice and things like that. But in general, Cancer kind of is a rather impulsive sign. And Cancer is a sign, right, that does deal with security and stability. Like, it's the fourth sign, for instance, right? When we think of the number 4, the first thing that comes to mind is that, like, security and foundation type of energy. It more so desires what is familiar, right? So you may be in of yourself very desirous of what is comfortable and what is safe and what is familiar to you. And with the moon and Cancer energy, there can also be this sense of comedianism, in the sense that Cancers, like, a lot of famous comedians are Cancers, and this is because Cancer is a cardinal water sign, and cardinal is all about initiating. So in general, Cancers are good at, like, stirring up feelings within others, initiating feelings within others, you feel me? And so the collaboration between the Gemini and Cancer energy can be like learning how to properly communicate and using your words to instill emotions within others. It's kind of like, comedians in of themselves are excellent communicators, right? They know how to set certain sentences up. They know when to pause. They know when to speak fast. All these things are required of a good communicator. And the communication aspect of things kind of just comes from you being a sun in Gemini. And we'll get into that later along the lines as well. But, for the most part, with the first house in Cancer, to get into the more technical, practical aspects of it, we already talked about how it belongs to the first emanation, and so it's more so geared towards paying attention and following its own feelings and emotions. But furthermore, within the body, right, Cancer governs, like, the breasts, and the reason why Cancer governs the breasts is because the breasts are like the seat of nourishment, right? And so Cancer is in of itself a sign that deals with nourishment and wanting to just care for people. Like, it's one of Cancer's key phrases, I care, right? They're very caring. But the primary key phrase for Cancer, or the affirmation for Cancer, is I feel, right? It's all about the feelings. And so it's important for you to pay attention to your feelings. And also, the cool thing about Cancer is it's depicted by the crab, right? And the thing about the crab is It's both a water and land creature, right? And so the waters are the emotions, but then the land is the practical energy of emotion, right? So kind of like this ability to practicalize one's emotions, like being cardinal water, the cardinal elements within the signs, like because the modality, so cardinal, fixed, immutable, signify the different states of elements or of matter. So cardinal is the gaseous state of matter. Mutable is the liquid state of matter, and fixed is the solid state of matter. So when we think of gaseous water or liquid, right, we kind of can think of clouds, or we can think of fogs. And one thing about clouds and fogs is they have a greater amount of oxygen than do solid or do liquid water, right? Like a gaseous form of water is more has more air in it, and so air is logic, right? So unlike the other signs, Cancer kind of has this ability to reflect and introspect and not act very Cancer does have their moments, right? Because Cancer, being ruled by the moon, fluctuation manifests tremendously. When I say fluctuation, right, like, changes, and the primary way that the changes manifest in Cancer are through its moodiness, like 1 minute feeling happy, 1 minute feeling sad, just moody type of energy with Cancer. But yeah, no, for the most part, with that crab being able to go land and then water, like the land is its practicalization of its emotions, and the water is just it feeling the emotions and maybe being overwhelmed. So that is a cool thing about Cancer. And now, like the crab, Cancer's strength is in its tenacity, which is reflected in the crab's strong outer shell, right? But Cancer's weakness is in its in its touchiness, right? Very sensitive, very soft, which is reflective of the interior shell. The interior soft, like body of a crab, right? The crab without its external physical shell is very susceptible to attack and susceptible to damage, right? But yeah, for the most part, Cancer energy can be very vulnerable, very open, and very receptive. And being a cardinal sign, Cancer is all about leading, but this is more of a feminine leader. It's all about leading from the back. It's kind of like the concept and idea that behind every great man there's a powerful woman, but in general, this is like leading from, when I say leading from the behind the scenes, this can be interpreted as leading via one's subconscious, in the sense of leveraging one's subconscious to benefit them, right? And yeah, we already talked about the book Psycho-Cybernetics. Like that gets really deep into how you can leverage your subconscious to kind of lead you in life, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much Cancer, which is your first house. Now, your second and your third house both are in the sign Leo. So we're going to begin by discussing your second house. And so your second house is within the sign. Your second house is within the sign of, hold on, give me a second. I'm thinking right now. It is within the sign Leo. And so what is the second house? The second house is the house that deals with personal possessions, personal resources, right? It encompasses things like one's money. It encompasses things like one's personal values. It encompasses, things like intangible possessions that can manifest in one's skills, like your voice, for example, right? This being something that is of value to you is a personal resource. Your voice and your ability to sing would be an example of a second house energy, right? Anything that's just personal resource and of value. Now, the second house, although encompassing money, is not per se reflective of how you make money, but kind of like it's the custodian of money and more so deals with one's viewpoint on money and like how the energy of money, like, I mean, to an extent, it kind of does reflect where money is at for you, but it's like the second house is the money, but the sixth house is the labor and the work that you need to engage into in order to generate that wealth and generate that money, right? And when we think of Leo, right, for one of the things that comes to my mind is the fact that Leo is the entertainer. Leo is the entertainer, right? I just laugh sometimes when it's like so obvious, right? Like the relation between one's birth chart and the manifested image within one's life, So I just find kind of a little funny how your second house is in Leo, and then like you even in our last conversation articulated how the the singing and the entertaining is kind of just a means to an end, so kind of like the money aspect of things, and of course it does go deeper, and it has to go deeper because music is so powerful. And yeah, amongst the things that you want to do, um, let me not get ahead of myself. What I wanted to share now, there's space for us to share in later sessions, right, where it'd be more appropriate for me to share. But yeah, for now, let's talk about the second house. So that's what the second house is. It's another personal house, and it's the house of wealth, right? The second, the sixth, and the 10th house are the houses of wealth. The second house, in a sense, is the custodian of wealth. The sixth house is where like the labor and the work is involved that brings the wealth. And the 10th house is kind of like the reputation and the status of the business or the career or the company, right? Like, for example, your band, let's say you have a band, right? That's kind of like 10th house energy. And like when people are like going to book you guys because what they heard about you, reputation, right? That's like the 10th house energy. But anyways, the second house in Leo. So first and foremost, Leo is a fire sign, right? And whenever the wealth houses are in a fire sign, it's like an indication that it's like an indication that entrepreneurship would be a greater like point of like okay, hold on. In general, because and before me disclosing like which path would be best, like some people, because of their astrological alignment, are better to be employed and work with companies, in the sense that because of the way that their energy is set up, they will be able to make a lot more money through salaries, whereas other people would be able to make a lot more money doing business for themselves, right? And so it doesn't mean that one is greater than the other. It's just all about energetic compatibility. Like, for example, the way that this can manifest is like the person whose energy is set up for them to work with a company rather than owning a company. Like, when they try to get into business, like, they may many times encounter failures. And so it's not that it's impossible, it would just be more difficult. So when it comes to astrology, you can always overcome the limitations and restrictions that may be present within your chart. It's like you can either go with the flow of your chart and leverage those energies that are natural to you, or you can, work hard through discipline and difficulty to create a new energy, right? But anyways, back to Leo. So yeah, that's the first and foremost thing. Whenever Leo or fire energy in general is concerned, there's kind of this energy of, yeah, you should probably work for yourself rather than working for others, right? And Leo is a very creative sign, a very expressive sign as well. And so this may even be an indication that where money manifests into the life through the most is like energies of like for sure entertainment. Leo is also very positive and expressive type of energy. And the energy of Leo is very much all about like rulership, you can kind of say, like it's all about leading. And so what this all can mean also is that for you, where money is concerned, it may be one of those things that eventually, or you have already, like in a sense, mastered. Because when you think of Leo, right, Leo's key phrase is I will, right? It's all about the willpower. So there may be this energy of willingness and having an ability to will more wealth into existence. And the thing about the willpower is will is concentrated desire, right? Will is what gets things done, willing things into existence, right? But but when it comes to desire, isolated, desire energy is powerful, but when it's isolated, it doesn't have enough energy to influence reality, right? So we all have desires. And it's like, for example, there's a thin line between you desiring a art center, right, for example, and then you willing it into existence, right? The willing kind of has more action, more activity, and that's the difference between desire and will. Will is more fire, it's more active. Meanwhile, desire is more water, it's more passive and emotional. Anyways, that's the key phrase for the Leo energy. I will. So where your personal possessions are concerned, it's of great importance that you align with your willpower. It's important that you have certain set goals and, ambitions where personal resources are concerned. And personal resources doesn't just have to be money, right? It can be like even land can be a personal resource. But the thing about land is like real estate, it's more like fourth house energy, not second house. But wealth, land can be a personal resource, right? So that's another example. And like if you think about it, in our conversation we were discussing how you want to own land, and the stuff that you want to do with that land is very Leo-like in a sense. Like you want to set it up to be a artistic center, for example, where many different people of all kinds are there. And I would assume that you would kind of be like running it to an extent, I think, kind of, right? And anytime you're running something or you're ruling something, it's very Leo energy. Now, we already discussed like the key phrases for Leo, which is I will and willpower, like willingness. And the strength with Leo is in its kindness, but its weakness is that it may at times be domineering and dominate things. And so this can express within the second house, as in possibly you amassing and acquiring tremendous amounts of wealth. because of the immense, like, well, attention, because Leo also deals with attention. The attention you may attract, or like the kindness from others you may receive. But simultaneously, the second house in Leo, there can be this domineering type of energy that can manifest where wealth may find a way to dominate you. Um, you know, I hope that that makes sense. And I guess it's kind of like this energy of being, because money is not the root of all evil, right? But the love of money and greed is like the root of all evil. And the love of money and greed comes from the lack of ethics and moral conduct, right? So it's really the lack of moral conduct and ethic that is the root of all evil, if we're to be practical. Money is nothing more or less but a tool, but money can corrupt, right? Because money is power, and power can corrupt if you're not ready for it. So from that perspective of domineering, I think that's what I'm seeing within the second house here. But yeah, for the most part, with this Leo energy, very positive types of energy, and there may even be this, like, because it's personal resources, possibly a lot of your personal resources are Leo-like. So for example, equipment that deals with entertainment, right? That's Leo. Like music is more of a niche, right? But the concept of music being entertaining is Leo energy, and it may even be like Leo in the second house may be like artistic energies. Those may be things that you hold to be very valuable, and a lot of your possessions may be art related, right? It can be painting, even paintings, right? But yeah, it's pretty much like your second house, which is in the sign Leo. And now to get into your, it's already 27 minutes. And now to get into your third house. The third house. The third house is one of my favorite houses. This is the house of Gemini, right? And this house deals with the inner mind. This is the last personal house. We've already talked about the first two personal houses, the second and the first. And now the third house deals with one's immediate environment, right? It deals with those around you. It deals with like your environment in general and what it is, like to the T of how things are organized, or maybe how things are disorganized, right? And now the interesting thing about this house is that this is a house that deals with, pardon me, this is a house that deals with the inner mind, right? It deals with your mental environments and things like that. So let me gather my thoughts again. So it both deals with one's immediate external environment, but simultaneously it deals with one's immediate internal environment. So like, kind of like the conscious mind and the thoughts that you're processing that are more in your conscious peripheral, right? Like they're present, and so yeah, it's like your immediate internal environment. It's your mental space. And so the reason why this house has a affinity towards both the external world and the internal world, right? Both the immediate external environment and the immediate internal environment is because they're the same, right? Like your environment, your immediate environment, so like your home, and all the way even to like your neighborhood, your neighbors, that's all a reflection of your internal mind and internal activities, things that are happening internally within you. And so yeah, hold on, give me a sec. My apologies, I accidentally clicked something. Nope. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, so that's what the third house is. Beyond just dealing with the external and internal environment, it also deals with one's siblings, right? Let's say you have siblings. And this is because our siblings are our first like encounters of associations or friendshipness or whatever, right? And people, in a sense, are ideas. Like what we do with people is we communicate with people. And communication is like exchange of idea, right? And our siblings are our first mental influences. Like they kind of peer pressure or peer examples, right? They kind of showed us certain things and influenced our upbringing. And so, from that perspective of our peers, children being, from that perspective, like our siblings being our first influences, they had a tremendous influence on our mental development, right? The second house, it also deals with like, things like classmates, schoolmates, right? The people that you went to school with. And the third house deals with K through 12 education in general, right? So very much a house that deals with the mind and like the development of the immediate mind, right? And so beyond all of that, also is the house that deals with skill sets. The second and the third house, in a sense, deal with skills, right? Uh, one's skills and one's, I'll leave it at that. One's skills, and amongst other things, like the third house also deals with transportation and with short-term transportation. So the interesting thing about that is like the polarity, between the second house and the third house and the ninth house. The ninth house deals with long travels, but then the second house deals with short travels. And so the thing here is the esoteric or allegory here is that short travels, in a sense, aren't only reflective on physically traveling around your city, but also short travels of the mind, right? So thinking, but not thinking so deep, kind of pondering on maybe something that happened today, or happened a week ago, or whatever, But then the ninth house is long-term travel, so it does deal with traveling into different countries, but it also deals with traveling spiritually into like, traveling into your mind and traveling through like sacred books and traveling mentally to tapping into philosophy and deep thought-provoking concepts, so that's also the other difference here. Now, okay, so with you having your third house in the sign Leo, this is cool, right? Because one thing I haven't been mentioning is the rulerships of these houses. So let's track back to your first house real quick. And so your first house, the first ruler of your first house is the moon. The only ruler of your first house is the moon, right? So the moon was your first house. The energy of the moon has a great influence over your first house. And the fact that the moon is in Libra in the fourth house is going to tremendously influence the energy of your personality and your personal life. Now, the second house ruler, the first second house ruler is Saturn, because you have Saturn in your second house. And we'll get more into that later when we get into mental alchemy. I'll help you learn certain solutions for this because, Saturn is the planet of like poverty, the planet of restriction, the planet of limitation, right? And so Saturn in the second house, which is the house of wealth, house of money, and things like that, it can depict and indicate that there's kind of certain mental energies that restrict wealth, but it's from your mind. And because it's within your mind, it reflects outwardly as restrictions in money and things like that. And this may be an energy that you overcame with time, because Saturn is very much the planet of time. Saturn is like crystallization, it's like diamonds, right? And first a diamond is a coal, and then after experiencing tremendous pressure, the diamond becomes the coal becomes a diamond, right? So there's a possibility that you kind of have resolved this energy, but for the most part, later, specifically when we get into mental alchemy and esoteric psychology, then I'll most definitely help you decode that energy. But yeah, that's your second house ruler, Saturn. Saturn is the first ruling over your second house, and then your moon is the second. Your sun is the second planet ruling over your second house, because the sun rules Leo. So by affinity, like by likehoodness, the sun rules your second house, and then your third house is completely ruled by the sun. Yeah, completely ruled by the sun. There's no planets within your third house. But yeah, so first and foremost, we already discussed the Leo energy, and everything I talked about in the second house about Leo, you kind of want to take it and interpretate it within this house as well. So this first and foremost, the third house being the house of the internal mind, right? And Leo being the house of will. What this indicates is that it kind of amplifies the significance of goals, because the thing about a goal is when you have a set goal in mind, it's easier for you to hone in on your desire, right? Hone in and concentrate your willpower towards that outcome. So the third house is the house of the mind. So one thing that's going to be of value for you to do is to start to learn and start to cultivate energies where you are constructively thinking, where you're using your thoughts to actively direct your willpower, rather than it's like, with the energy of Leo, for the most part, it's positive and optimistic, but simultaneously, because you have your sun in the 12th house, this kind of does reflect certain sabotaging mental ways of thinking, right? But for the most part, though, with this Leo energy, it's important that you learn to guide your thoughts rather than your thoughts, in a sense, guiding you, right? Because Leo is, as we mentioned, very dominating energy. So you want to dominate your thoughts before your thoughts dominate you. And so I was first under the suggestion that I was going to do this reading tomorrow, because quote unquote I should take a break. But for me, because of my goals and the ways that I want to channel my willpower to will certain things into existence, like that just doesn't make sense for me to take breaks, right? Especially with this work that I do, because with this work that I do, in the beginning, right, it was very, very difficult, because anytime you try something new, especially something that's mental, the brain consumes the most energy. Like, out of all the different activities, like labor activity takes less energy from you than mental activity. Like sitting down and, for example, taking a test where you really have to think, or sitting down and decoding someone's birth chart where you really have to think, right? Like that takes more energy. Like the brain consumes a lot more energy than the muscles, right? And so, of course, in the beginning it was difficult, but it gets easier and easier and easier. But the thing with work is we all associate pain to work. Work is painful for everyone, right? Millionaires, billionaires, everyone. Wealth is just, work is a painful thing. When we think of work, we think of responsibilities, we think of stress, we think of all these different things. And so I break that to explain this, that what you need to do is you need to learn to redirect that energy from pain to pleasure, in the sense that instead of me thinking about how I've been working a lot and it's been difficult and painful and stressful, and I need to take a break. Rather, I choose to associate my work with more positive and harmonious things. Like, for example, getting this done today, sending it to you so you can, get it sooner, which I would assume would make you a little bit happier. But even beyond that, like, us me be moving as fast as I possibly can with this, so then we can finish our work in a more condensed time. Because yeah, the sooner you learn all this information, the better. You feel me? The better for you. And but beyond that, just reminding myself that there's a bunch of other clients I need. So the point of the moral is the point of the story. The moral of the story is, rather than associating this with heavy responsibility and stress, I associated it with enjoyment and pleasure and excitement and that type of energy, right? And so that's an example of how you can learn to master your thoughts, because your thoughts, the way that you think, has a great, powerful, like huge influence over your actions. If I stayed in this energy of like, I don't need to do this, like I've been working all week and like, nah, I'd rather just relax, then guess what? My thoughts would reflect through my actions as me not doing this. But instead, I chose to reconstruct my way of thinking and my attitude. Because I reconstructed my thinking and my attitude changed. And here I am today doing this for you. Happily, not to mention. So that's what I mean by learning to dominate your thoughts rather than having your thoughts dominate you. You feel me? And so with the Leo in the first, with the Leo energy in the third house, it's of significance. Now, Leo in the third house can be a interpretative type of energy where it's like your mental environment may be very imagery, very visual, in the sense that the fire element in general deals with visions, deals with sight. You feel me? So you may find yourself thinking in ways of image and visualizations and things like that. But because you have Mercury in Taurus, right? Mercury kind of has a greater influence over your way of thinking because it's an active energy. Like the house is just a department of life. Like it's just an area, it's just like a container. But Mercury is actually active, right? And so you have Mercury in the 11th house. So that's where Mercury is active in. And Mercury is in Taurus, which means that you are a rather practical thinker. You like to think in terms of, okay, so what is the most practical? What is the most grounded? Like A plus B equals C type of thinking. Like not like so much in the Geminian energy of thinking where it's very intangible and irrational, but always wanting to make things practical, right? Like for like for example, in our conversation when you brought up the concept of like how can the sun be small when it's so big to us? Right? That's like a direct thought. Like it's just no fluff, like practical, right? So it's very practical energy, it's practical way of thinking with the Mercury in Taurus. And we'll get more into Mercury in Taurus in the 11th house later. But I just wanted to visit that real quick because the third house, even though your third house is in Gemini, even though the ruler of your third house, the sun, is in Gemini, it's of benefit to talk a little bit about Mercury as well. Because Mercury traditionally rules the third house. But yeah, that's your third house, and now let's get into your fourth house. So the fourth house, this is the house of the home. This is the house of family. Now, we finished the personal houses, and we are now getting into the companion houses. The fourth, the fifth, and the sixth are companion houses. Before I get into the fourth house, I want to say one last thing about the third house. The third house is a house of associations, right? And we just talked a lot about how it does deal with your immediate associations, but it also deals with your thoughts. And so it's of great value for you to start thinking about your thoughts in a standpoint of they're your associates. Like you can choose to associate with certain thoughts, or you can choose to cut ties with other thoughts, and the better you get at choosing thoughts, the better your life in turn will be. So it's kind of like the idea that birds of a feather flock together. If you choose the right thoughts to make your friends, to make your allies, then what this will mean is that like your external world start to reflect that energy, right? And we got into why that is by the third house and all that good stuff. So no need to revisit that. I just kind of wanted to bring up the association energy of the third house and how it kind of reflects that you're associating with certain thoughts, right? Now, the fourth house. The fourth house, as we discussed, is the house. It's a companion house. It deals with the companions of the home. It deals with like the more private life. It's like domestic life, right? It's the home life, as I keep saying. It's like your family and all that good stuff. So the fourth house is also a psychic house. It belongs to the psychic trinity. And so we've talked about the wealth, the trinity of wealth, right, which is the second, sixth, and 10th. We also talked about the trinity of life, which is the first, fifth, and ninth house. But we haven't talked about the trinity of psychicness, which is the fourth, the eighth, and the 12th house. These are all psychic houses. Now, the reason why our influences, like our family energy is psychic, is because your ancestor, your lineage, your ancestors, your lineage and your heritage, beyond just your DNA and your physicalness, right? Even like the ancestry of your soul, the family lineage of your soul, right? All of these things are very spiritual. And so the fourth house kind of does hold certain energies, like certain attributes and qualities manifested within you that are a result of you having incarnated them from, you having inherited, not incarnated, you having inherited them from like family, right? There's certain attributes and qualities that you may portray that may be biological, that may be other DNA synchronized, right? And so first and foremost, your fourth house is within the sign Virgo, right? And you have both Pluto and, I'm gonna double check though, you have both Pluto and the moon in your fourth house. So just to double check to be sure, you have Pluto and the moon and your north node in the fourth house too. So Pluto is the first ruler of your fourth house. This is because Pluto is within the fourth house, right? And so it's the closest planet to the cusp of the fourth house. So Pluto is the first planet that rules your fourth house. Pluto is the planet of intensity. It intensifies things. It is an extreme planet. It manifests in polarity. It can either manifest as beauty and harmony and like the greatest expression of spirituality. It's like the planet of universal wellness. It's a planet of cooperation. But simultaneously, Pluto can be Hades. It can be very insidious. It can be scary, scary, dark, and it just can be associated with a bunch of dark things, So Scorpio is a very polarizing planet. And unfortunately, right, like negative is easier than positive because negative is like magnetic. It's like when you're in a negative state, it's kind of like a spiral to the bottom, right? Like you get pulled into that negativity, but then positivity kind of takes a little bit of effort on your behalf. Like you got to continuously, channel your willpower to do constructive things, to maintain certain habits, meditate, breath work, affirmation, right? So positivity is more active, and you have to actively pursue it. And so within that context, the energy of Pluto within this realm primarily manifests in its negative polarity rather than its positive polarity. But if you actively engage in the Platonic energy to bring its positive energies forth, then it will come, right? And that's like the energies of transcendence, transformation, spiritual illumination, and awakening. You feel what I'm saying? Like really, really awakening to your higher self type energy. Like Pluto is the last planet, right? Pluto is the 10th planet, and like the number 10, right, being like a higher octave of the number 1. Pluto is like the planet that brings in a higher octave of energies, right? Like after 10, like 1 through 9 happens again, but it's like 1 through 9 on like a greater level, a higher octave, a more spiritual octave. So that's very much Pluto, right? But we'll get more into that later when we talk about the planets, and I'll dive into Pluto in the 4th house for you. But yeah, Pluto is the first ruler of your 4th house. The second ruler of your 4th house is the moon, right? Because the moon is there as well. And the third ruler of your 4th house would be the planet Mercury, right? The planet Mercury would be the 4th ruler of your 4th house. No, the 3rd ruler of your 4th house, my mistake. So Mercury, 4th house in the sign Virgo. So Virgo is an earth sign, right? Virgo is a very practical, tangible sign. It's interesting though, because Virgo is a sign that's ruled by the planet Mercury, and Mercury is an air sign, and the air and earth are contradictory energies, right? Like air cannot hold earth, and earth cannot hold air. You know what I'm saying? Like they're very contradictive energies. And so the interesting thing about Virgo is the least earthly earth sign, right? In the sense that it's pretty earthly for sure, because it's an earth sign, but it's the least earthly when compared to Taurus and Capricorn. In the sense that Virgo is the mechanism of bringing your thoughts into physical, tangible reality, right? Gemini is just thoughts and thinking and thinking and thinking, right? Even sometimes thinking for the sake of mental stimulation, for the sake of thoughts. Meanwhile, Virgo is like more serious about the thoughts. It doesn't just waste mental energies, but it's like if Virgo is going to think, it has to think something into tangible existence, right? It's either thinking and planning or thinking in practicality in general. And so what happens when Virgo is in 4th house is within the home life, there may not have been a complete like emotional connectivity, like possibly where physical energies are concerned, like making sure that you have the right resources, like the right education, maybe even like in general just being well set physically. Like you may have been provided for, and that may have been there tremendously, but where emotional energies are concerned, there may have been a shortage there where nurturing and caring type of energies may have been concerned. There kind of may have been a shortage there. And yeah, there may have been a shortage there. Hold on, I want to think about this. But yeah, more tangible energies may have been present. You may have been really resourceful and in regards to family. But there also may have been this energy of like, hold on, let me think about this. There also may have been this energy of like perfectionism, right? Because Virgo is very much the sign that deals with perfectionism. And so what I mean by perfectionism is there may have been high expectations and high standards that may have been imposed by the father, possibly, or even the mother. Also, a possibility of maybe you needing to be a certain way or have certain achievements, and very high critical energies may have been there as well. That's one end of it. But simultaneously, because Virgo is somewhat of a polarized sign, like all the mutable signs are polarized. Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, Virgo, right? The four mutable signs, they're all somewhat polarized. And so yeah, there may have been this like possibly simultaneously this energy of maybe like there may have been high expectations and high standards, but simultaneously there was a great support system in play in regards to helping one reach those goals. Now, with the fourth house being in Virgo doesn't really say, I love you, but Virgo more shows it, right? Virgo shows it through practical action. Virgo will do something for you to show you that they love you rather than actually saying that they love you. It's very much like the energy of Virgo. So that energy may have been present as well. And where attributes and qualities are concerned that you may have kind of received from your family, there may have been this energy of like over analyticalness or criticismness that may have been passed hereditively. Now, Virgo is a very organized sign, right? It's interesting because although an organized sign, sometimes this organization can play out in disorganization, but it's like the Virgo energy, even though disorganized, kind of knows where everything is, like where this is and where that is in the midst. So it's organized chaos. But in general, with you having this fourth house in Virgo, maybe an indication possibly that your home life, like your home, may be very organized, very like perfectly, precisely organized, or it can mean it's not completely organized, but you know where everything is, right? So it's like organized chaos. And I think like with the sun being in Gemini, that may be more the case, because Gemini is like very chaotic, right? Very all over the place. And as a Gemini, we need to learn to ground ourselves and organize our thoughts and our actions and our environments, right? So yeah, Virgo is also very much like the hermit, right? Very alone, solo, dolo. So this can, on one end, depict that where your home is concerned, you may like your own space and to be alone. Simultaneously, because you have Mercury in the 11th house, 11th house being the house of networks, associations, social life, friends, and things like that. It may also indicate that possibly there may be this roommate setup situation where it's like you're not only living by yourself, but there may be certain roommates or colleagues or friends, whatever, that may be a part of the home, maybe encompassed within the home. But yeah, so to get into like the more practical energies of Virgo is a like second emanation sign, meaning that it kind of alters its energy, right? According to, and Leo is like this too, but Leo alters its energy according to influence, inspiration, and enthusiasm, right? So like a Leo, right, and apply this to your second and your third house, right? The Leo energy will have a feeling of inspiration on its behalf, right? But then it will be open and receptive to someone outside of it contributing to that inspiration and kind of slightly changing that inspiration, but their original inspired thought and the other person's inspired thought collaborating together. That makes sense. Now, Virgo is more like earthly. So Virgo, because it's an earth sign, right? And the earth is all about resources and practical energy. Virgo kind of will reflect and see how things work and then adapt it, right? According to its own ideas as well. So it will look out into the world and maybe observe how people are acquiring wealth, what is practical and what is tangible and what makes sense on a practical basis. And then Virgo will take it and, in a sense, add its own ideas and practical notions onto it and apply it, right? So the earth signs are all about application. They're about practical application. So yeah, that may be the energy of the home life. A lot of practical applications, maybe owning a lot of things because of their function and their practicalityness. And with the fourth house being in Virgo, Virgo being a also kind and charitable sign, this can possibly even be like this type of energy where some of the companions of the home may be there because you're there to help them or they're there to help you. That dynamic also may manifest. But yeah, I think that's pretty much that with the Virgo energy. So the strength of the energy of Virgo is its analytical ability, its ability to analyze things and see the details within things, right? But the weakness is its criticism, right? So there's a thin line between analyzing something and criticizing something. When you critique something, it's kind of like you go out your way to look for something negative. And it's like, whenever you are looking, you will find, right? It's the idea. But then analyzing is just, analyzing maybe a chart or whatever. Just looking to see the details and being biased. Not being biased, being neutral, right? And so, yeah, Virgo is all about analyticalismness. So there may have been a lot of analytical energies within the home life, or there are a lot of analytical energies in the home life. Yeah, but anyways, now to get into the fifth house. So the fifth house, and your fifth house is in, let me check real quick. Your fifth house is in the sign of Scorpio. No, it's in the sign of Libra. Interesting. So yeah, it's within the sign of Libra. And the first planet that is ruling over your fifth house is Uranus, and then the second planet that's ruling over your fifth house is Venus, because Venus rules, Venus rules Libra. Alright, so first and foremost, the energy of the fifth house. The fifth house is also another companion house, right? We talked about that. We talked about it's the house of life, and we talked about how so like the fourth house, right? The fifth house and the sixth house all fall into the right side of the chart, which means that their energies are kind of fixed, somewhat stagnant, and not much development is undergone within these houses. But it's like you can effortlessly try to, change them if you want. But typically within these houses, how energy was is how energy always is going to be, in a sense. And so the fifth house is the house of the family, right? And this is kind of seen, right, in family dynamics, how somewhat there's always like this similar energy within one's family life that kind of persists and always is. And then the fifth house, this is the house of entertainment, right? This is the house of one's like things like one's, sex life, one's love life, right? Entertainment and offsprings as well, right? Because through lovemaking. We get offsprings, we can even say. But furthermore, the fifth house is the house that, deals with, it's another companion house as well. We talked about that. And so, yeah, it's the house of love and like lovemaking, and the house of offsprings, right? Because A plus B equals C, right? Very simple. And so the cool thing though about this house is that when we are talking about sexual energy is raw creative energy, right? So sexual energy doesn't have to translate into children physically, offsprings physically, but you can use your sexual energy creatively to, for example, create a masterpiece, like a song, or like an art piece, right? Like a painting or drawing or a dance, right? Whatever. So this is why it's like the house of great creative expression. And so the fifth house being the house of entertainment, right? As well. So let's kind of dissect this from the perspective of you having your fifth house within the sign, Libra. So Libra is a sign, an energy that deals with equilibrium and balance, right? Libra is all about harmonization. And so the sign Libra belongs to the second emanation of the air signs. It's the second sign to manifest. Air speaking. The second air sign to manifest. And so with that being said, Libra kind of is very much subjected to the advice and the thoughts of others, right? But it kind of takes the advice and thoughts of others and combines it with its own inclination, ideas, and thoughts. So it's a modified energy, collaborated energy, right? And so the thing with the Libra energy is it is a sexual energy. And the reason for that is because Libra is all about union, right? It's all about balance. It's all about like partnership. It's all about the joining of two forces to like attain balance and harmony, right? And like sex with like the right person can help someone get to that level, right? Of like balance and equilibrium. And so when the fifth house is in the Libra, there can be a tremendous amount of sexual energy that should be channeled and utilized into a channel of using it to create art and create harmonies and create beauty to give to the public, right? So like your musical ability and your musical energies, and the fact that a lot of what you sing about is harmony and peace, right? Like that, all that kind of is very much like fifth house Libra. And so the fifth house in Libra, this can also be an indication that a pastime for you, right? It's the house of entertainment. One of the pastimes for you may be engaging with a partner, right? Engaging with someone, right? This can be a personal friend, someone that's close to you or whatever. That may be one of the ways that you may tremendously enjoy spending time and passing time, right? Fifth house, right? That may be entertaining for you. Engaging with someone, exchanging ideas with someone. Other things that may bring great entertainment to your way is like things like literature, things like I want to say visual arts. It's very much Libranian as well. And so with the fifth house being in Libra, this can possibly even be an indication that like a Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is in this. Well, in regards to offsprings, right? This can be an indication that a lot of your offsprings, your children, are like the kind that bring harmony into life. And so, like I said, this can be physical children or children from an intangible perspective, like your art pieces, your just offsprings, right? Your art pieces, music, and things like that. And so, also with like the Libra energy. So to get into like the practical energies of Libra's greatest quality is its kindness. It can be a very kind sign. It's very friendly. Like Libra energy can create friends easily and effortlessly. But its weakness is in its like Afrobaticness. Like it can be anti-conflict, non-assertive in its energy, right? So at times Libra may kind of be somewhat spineless, and so this may even possibly express in like your artistic energies from a perspective of like maybe there was a piece that you may have wanted to create, then one of your colleagues may have made a suggestion, and the suggestion was okay, but you thought your idea was better, and there can possibly be this energy of instead of asserting yourself in that energy, you would kind of move with the flow and allow that change to be made, which was his recommendation, even though you liked your recommendation better. Although I don't really see that happening because you have like your Mars in the sign Aries, right? And Aries is very much a very assertive sign. Aries is the opposite, sign to Libra. So yeah, I don't really think that is an issue, but a possibility for sure. Now, also to get more into, I think that's like, in a sense, encapsulates the fifth house. And as far as one's like love life is concerned, because Libra is a sign that deals with partnerships, like you may not really so much be a promiscuous woman, even though you do have a lot of sexual energy, but you may be the type of woman who would rather get into promiscuity and the scene of like partnership, and like when engaging in promiscuity um you may have hopes that like this will grow into something bigger, or there can be like almost this clingy type of energy as well, of not just wanting one night stands and not just engaging with someone off the bat, kind of also somewhat wanting to get a little bit understanding of them and make a friendship from a perspective of colleagues, right? Now Mars in Aries can kind of make you, hold on, I wonder where your Venus is. Let me see. Venus in Aries and Mars in Aries. Mars in Aries and Venus in Aries can kind of make you a assertive woman who sometimes may be fast into getting into things, right? Like if there's an interest, maybe sexual, things may escalate. Things may escalate quickly because Aries is a very fast sign. So that's a possibility as well. With Venus being in Aries, ruling over your fifth house, the energy of temperance is kind of somewhat a little bit altered, a little bit influenced to a place where there may be a little bit more promiscuity and a little bit more welcoming to like being more sexually free in spirit, I guess you can say. But yeah, that's like the fifth house, which is in the sign of Libra. Now let's get into the final house, which is like this. The final house, which is the sixth house. So your sixth house is within the sign Sagittarius, right? And the first ruler of your sixth house is Neptune. The second ruler of your sixth house is Jupiter. So with you having Neptune ruling over your sixth house, what this indicates and what this means is that this energy right here, right, is like, well, the sixth house is the house of labor, the house of work, right? And it deals with things that you should align yourself with to make money. And so Sagittarius being a fire sign, it kind of reaffirms that energy of rather being a entrepreneur instead of an individual that's what's that word? Employed, right? Sagittarius is the sign of freedom. Sagittarius desires to be free, desires to express itself, and doesn't want to be caged in a box, right? And Sagittarius is also the sign of higher ideals, like higher thoughts and things like that. So the fact that your work, right, the things that you do, like you try to align your music with like something positive, right, is very much Sagittarian, because Sagittarius is a very optimistic, very positive sign. And Neptune is like the planet of universal, it's like utopian energy, right? Like this desire for things to be wonderful and for things to be utopianistic, right? And so within your work, there is definitely this energy of wanting to help humanity move into a more positive place, a more positive light. And so with the sixth house being here, teaching is one of those things that align with Sagittarius. So incorporating like higher education. When I say higher education, I mean like philosophy and spirituality. But Sagittarius does rule universities and colleges as well, so maybe that too. But yeah, so within this, with the sixth house being here, it's all about being expressive, all about making sure that freedom is somehow incorporated, expression, because fire is expression in general. And what else can we say about the sixth house here? It's really important that you in your work align with something greater than just tangible energy, right? So even the work that you do, making it somewhat spiritual and somewhat philosophical to the best of your ability, Singing about positive things is a very great example. But yeah, Sagittarian things encompass things like travel, things like teaching, exploration, devotion, and illumination, right? So aligning yourself with work that may contribute either to the illumination of others or devoting yourself, like making a work that you can devote yourself to, right? Making a work that is of a higher calling, a work that's going to contribute. Like a good example of this energy could be like, let's say your land, right? And your art center. That being like off grid somewhere, right? And somewhat disconnected from governments is a very Sagittarian example. Or maybe even the work that you do right now, you you not being signed to a label or anything, like you being independent. I think you're independent, I don't know, would be an example of Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius is very free, wants to be able to spread its wings and go wherever it wants, wake up when it wants, just express itself freely. So yeah, all Sagittarian energy. And with you having your 6th house in Sagittarius, it's important that with everything that you do, work related, you go big, right? You go all the way in. Now, to get into the technical energies of Sagittarius's greatest attribute and quality is that it is a like ambitious sign, right? It's very grandiose and huge in everything that it does. Its weakness is its sportiveness, meaning it can be very competitive, right? Uh, and make things into competitions. And the key word that encapsulates Sagittarius is comprehension. And Sagittarius's key phrase or affirmation is I see. You know, these are all energies worth incorporating into your work. So maybe through your music, painting an image, helping people see certain things, helping people comprehend certain things, and within your work, also being ambitious. And you feel what I'm saying? But making sure that you're aligned with the uh, Jupiter and Neptune energy as you're doing it as well. But yeah, that's pretty much that, And later we'll get more into what that means, Neptune and Jupiter, right? We'll get more into what that means. But yeah, that pretty much is it. I definitely look forward to your feedback and definitely look forward to talking with you some more. But anyways, without further ado, peace, peace, peace.